It's my very big pleasure to welcome you all to this session, which is the Purpose-Driven Business School and Purpose-Driven Business. It is the session at the Leaders Summit UN Global Compact, where we will discuss issues particularly related to how academia and business work together in a variety of different ways, and where we will also challenge and discuss how could we improve, how could we even do this much better. My name is Mette Morsing, and I'm the head of PRIME, Principles for Responsible Management Education, which is an initiative of the UN Global Compact established back in 2007. So it is a huge privilege for me to welcome this distinguished panel of leaders from around the world who have joined us for the next hour to discuss exactly this topic. So with me today, I have Elisabeth Fröhlich, who is the president of Cologne Business School. And Elisabeth Fröhlich brings a lot of experience from many years of practice with academia and business. And I'm also very happy to say that Lisa is the chapter chair of DAC, the German, in the German area of Europe. And she's also the newly appointed board member of the new PRIME board. So welcome to you, Lisa.
Thank you so much.
We also have with us here today, the next distinguished speaker is George Nyanga, who's the executive dean at Strathmore University Business School. And I think it's fair to say, as you said yourself, George, that this has been a passion. This very topic has been a passion of yours for many, many years. And also just me looking at your CV, I can see how you have sort of interweaved in your career, academia and business very much in practice. So a warm welcome to you here also. And maybe a little bonus info for all of you out there following us is that actually the incoming CEO and Executive Director of the United Nations Global Compact is an alumni from the very business school that you are the Executive Dean of. So Sanda Udiambo, who will actually welcome the Global Forum of PRIME on Wednesday morning, is actually an alumni from Strathmore Business University School. So welcome to you also, George Nyanga.
Thank you, Mette.
Our third distinguished speaker is Urs Jäger, the professor at Inca Business School in Costa Rica. And you're sort of a professor of strategic change and in emerging countries with a focus on how the formal and the informal economy works together towards sustainable development. You are also a PRIME champion. And I'm also very happy to say that you will also, or are also now, a newly appointed member of the PRIME board. So a warm welcome to you also, Urs.
Thank you.
And lastly, the fourth distinguished speaker on this panel, that is you, Tanya Kiristitayavur from Thailand. And you are not, you could say, not working in academia like the rest of us in a business school and a university, but you are actually the executive director of the UN Global Local Network in Thailand. So you bring with you that business perspective, and I know that you have also some experience that you want to engage us with in how you've been working with academia in a variety of different projects as an executive director. So a warm welcome to you also. I know this is midnight in Thailand, so you are extra brave that you actually hang out with us here today. We really appreciate that. Thank you and warm welcome.
Thank you. Very delighted to see everyone here.
So today already, some hours ago, actually 4 hours ago, the UN Global Compact Leaders Summit started out here. And I've been listening in. I've actually been in the office here with Lisa Kingo for the last 4 hours and listening and discussing. And it has been so interesting to listen into the many voices talking about the global crisis. Not crisis in the singularis, but crisis in the pluralis. Because we are not just facing a COVID pandemic, we are also facing a climate change crisis, and we're also facing a social unrest about social injustice in the world, just to mention 3 of the most conspicuous crises that we we're witnessing in the world today. All of these crises are crises, but they are also potential opportunities for higher education. And I'm inviting you to discuss this crisis and potential opportunities with us as we go along here over the next few minutes. And of course, this is about the planet, it's about health, it's about human rights, but it is also important how we educate the next generation of youth to actually take responsible leadership as they become the decision makers of tomorrow. So this is what I will explore with you. This is how we will spend the next exciting few minutes. I've really been looking forward to this panel and how we've organized ourselves here. To let you know, is that I have invited the 4 speakers to come with a few initial remarks, perspectives on this challenge of how purpose-driven business schools and purpose-driven business work on these challenges and how they work together on these challenges. And after the 4 remarks from each of my panelists here, then I will have some questions that we have discussed. And if you out there will have some good questions, I would like to invite a couple of questions also onto the table here for the panelists. So that's sort of the way we will run this panel for today. So I would like to invite Elisabeth Fröhlich, Dean of Cologne Business School, as the first speaker. Please, Lisa.
First of all, thank you very much for this great opportunity to share some of my thoughts with this panel here. I have to make one announcement. It's called now CBS International Business School, so we have changed our name, but it's still Cologne in it, so we didn't change the C, so only this is one final statement I would like to make. But more important is definitely the, let's say, impact of the crisis or the crises, the difference we have to deal with right now. And from my point of view, it's very essential right now that we tightly link theory and practice. Yeah? So this is one of my major areas where I'm working on and where I really try to make a difference. Because from my point of view, one of the most critical questions nowadays for companies is if it's still possible to plan the future in such uncertain times. And my major research field is supply chain management, sustainable supply chain management, and here it's very, very obvious. Yeah? So what kind of steps do we have to take in terms of creating resilience, yeah? So that we can go on like this? And I think the crisis taught us very obvious that we cannot go on with this anymore, and there will be no back to normal. But very important is here, what kind of solutions can we offer as business school? How can we give practical recommendations for action? Yeah? So we are in the decade of action, and this is exactly what we have to do. We have to come up with concrete ideas and innovative concepts that companies can use. So I would like to use one example, the example of strategic planning, because that's again very close to what I'm doing at CBS. And the focus is no longer on simply achieving deterministic targets. So when I discuss this with students, I always call it our controlling society, yeah? Because we always believe, okay, if we set a target, we perfectly know how to achieve this, but this is unfortunately no longer true. So we have to find strategies which enable companies to survive. So that's a completely different approach. And the question is, what can we do? Because this completely contradicts with what we learn in school and what we also teach our students. Yeah? So this is a completely different way of thinking strategy. So it's no longer about predicting the future, it's more about preparing for the uncertainties of the future. And one important thing here is we have to leave our comfort zone, yeah? Because we have to come up with new ideas how to deal with it. And this is not, and that's very important for me, that's not for the sake of just doing something, yeah, without a long-term perspective. It's more about a continuous orientation of entrepreneurial actions to changing situations, yeah, and changing conditions. So I would like to cite a statement of one of my colleagues. He said it's a very simple sentence, but from my point of view, it's very interesting to think about it. Instead of narrowly focusing on the conditions of possibility for strategy implementation, the possibilities of conditions have to be addressed first. So this is the idea about the concept we would like to implement right now. And this continuous alternation between change and statics. This is very complex and this is very demanding for an organization. And if these coincidences become normality, employees, they quickly lose the overview and also managers lose control. So that's very important to understand too. And we have to come up with new ideas of how to create those communication. And then we are back to our topic here. How can we set up a cooperation between companies and the academic and business schools so that we can find solutions for these challenging problems we have to deal with? And one aspect which is also very important for me, and this is now my final point, that this crisis taught us one very important thing, and this is solidarity. So it doesn't make any kind of difference how powerful you are, how wealthy you are, how much money you have. You cannot fight those kind of crises anymore yourself. And this is another reason for this very important topic of cooperation. And we also have to change our way of thinking business. This I call it egocentric mindset of globalization, where we only strive for economic success. This is no longer working. So we need a more holistic understanding, a more we also call it regenerative business. It's very philosophical, I know, but it's the only way how we can go forward and how we can find some new ways of thinking business. And what is also important, I'm not quite sure if this is the right term, but that's the reason. If you're, let's say that if you're not a native speaker, sometimes you're missing the right words. But the important one is that we have to find a kind of common understanding for very basic arguments we share. So to give you another example from the sustainable supply chain, for example, hygiene standards. So we have to commit ourselves to those kind of statements and standards. And this requires, again, cooperation, because we have to develop those kind of commitment and we have to talk to each other. So UN Global Compact is the company, so stands for companies, and we as Prime, we stand for the sustainability aspects of business schools, and we have to bring this together to find new ways to think economy. And you can use whatever statement you would like. Maybe Churchill, never miss a good crisis. But from my point of view, it's really, really important, because the ability and speed of analysis combined with our ability and speed of reaction, this is our new formula for success. And for me, it's very important, and I hope this will be one of the major outputs of today's discussion, that we don't miss this opportunity this crisis gave us to work together and really come up with a new idea of business with a more sustainable way of business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elisabeth Fröhlich, Dean of Cologne International Business School, for these introductory remarks. And now our next distinguished speaker, George Nyanka, the Executive Dean of Strathmore Business School in Kenya. Please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mete, for asking me to speak. I'm very grateful for the words Lisa has already given. And I'd like to say that we are a bit on the lower side of development scale here in Africa. As you know, we do not have our industrial development strategies at the same level as Europe. And therefore, I'm going to discuss it from a more practical perspective of resilience for our...
Can I just say for a second, can I ask Lisa, Tanya, and Wolf, can you please turn off your mics, because there's an echo I'm here in my voice. Thank you. Sorry, George.
So I'll continue. Fantastic. Yes, that sounds very silent. That's very good. That's very good. So first, I'd like to say, before I even comment on how we connect with business school, to say thank you, UN Global Compact, and also for Prime, for the simple reason we've been members since 2015, and we have made even earlier, 2013, we signed in 2013, and we have had a very important decision in the whole of the university, including my school, about how we are going to insert the sustainable development goals inside our structure. Since 2014, we started doing an incredible round across Europe and across Europe, mainly, and the United States of America, to see how we can collaborate with other business schools. And that brought about an incredible number of partnerships. To be sure, right now we have about 45 partnerships with schools like University of St. Gallen in Switzerland, University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada, New York University in New York, and then across Singapore, we have a very incredible program on senior management with the Nanyang Business School and Wharton Business School in healthcare. So we have quite a number of partnerships we have decided to develop, and all of them are around this one principle that we have chosen, bringing in the less privileged communities into the economy. That has been our fundamental principle. And for that, we, as a business school, now I'm not talking about the university, as a business school, we have strengthened all our business education programs from first year to PhD with an incredible amount of data for decision making in each of our programs. All right, because we feel unless we democratize information inside the business school, then it will be an ideological struggle between people. And we chose, rather than discuss ideologically where we ought to be, let's understand the numbers. And I don't want to go into the detail of that because it's just an introductory speech. Now, the second thing as a business school, which was fundamental, was we realized that our governments across Africa are not structured to encourage private sector to develop its own nation. So one of the things we did was to set up an Institute of Public Policy and Governance. And inside that Institute of Public Policy and Governance, we set very clearly the Prime Partnership and also the Center for Sustainability Leadership. So we already have a very specialized section in sustainability leadership. A good example of that, practically speaking, instead of theory, we are the first to host the Climate Innovation Center of the World Bank in the world, in the globe, and it has been very successful. We have more than 165 companies that have been spun off the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, which is largely driven now, not before. Before we were just partners with 4 other companies, including PricewaterhouseCoopers. Now we are the main drivers, though we have spun off the Kenya Climate Innovation as an autonomous vehicle for promoting climate entrepreneurship in agriculture, in water, and in energy. And we are also adding healthcare and agriculture from this year onwards, okay? So we think that it's about meeting the needs that are basic, like inclusivity, reduction of poverty, and not in future, now. Then we have financial services, because we know that less than 30% of most of the African people have access to financial services, and therefore they cannot do good business. Then we have, thanks to Lisa for mentioning it, we have the supply chain discussions across Africa and across the globe. Across Africa, we are dealing with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, because we realized again that it is basic. If you want people to have a better life, you need integration into the economy of your neighboring countries. And we found out that the inter-African exchange of goods and services is below 18%, which is sad. So we trade more with China, with India, with Germany, with Netherlands, with the UK. The UK is quite substantial, and with the United States of America, more than we do with the rest of the African countries. Now, Kenya is a bit different, It's a little bit more advanced, but still not rich compared to other African countries. And most of our exports and imports, we can say at least now have crossed the 50% mark within our neighbors, Uganda and Tanzania. But in general, most African countries do not have more than 18% of their trade between themselves as neighbors. In fact, we have a lot of trade barriers between us within our own continent. So we've decided that that has to be worked on, and we are setting up now a Center for Regional Integration of Economics and helping nations to realize the importance of integrating their policies so that we stop this infighting within Africa for low level. And the core at the center of this is supply chain management. If we can get the supply chain, this is fundamental. I'll tell you more about that. Then the last part that we have realized we can touch many people's lives is in the agribusiness and management sector. I'll tell you a story about this so that I stop telling you stories about how business schools teach agribusiness. We have partnerships in Netherlands and Israel in this area. And, you know, I decided as a dean, I had to show and demonstrate what to do. So I told them one of the problems of our supply chain strategies from data demonstrates that we do not have aggregators. Now, when you don't have aggregators, where the vast majority of agribusiness people is small scale, in Kenya, you don't have, the average land ownership is 2.9 hectares, all right? And we don't want to change that at all. Because if we change, then we have to take those people from the farm to the city, which makes it even worse without an industrialized platform. So guess what happened? What happened was that right this year, right in the middle of the COVID crazy stuff, all right? Right when they had said that Milan in northern Italy was closing up, the very day they closed up, we had already moved a machine from one of the factories near there, Vitone, into a ship. We brought that machine all the way to Dubai, where we have the exchange. I think it's Abu Dhabi. And this was a machine to transform avocado. Avocado is a fruit that is very beautiful and very nutritious and very great. We grow it here in plenty, but we have 60% of the production lost because of lack of use. So we said to convert that loss, why don't we have an aggregator of avocado oil and then export that oil to the people who love it? Why? Because here in our country, we don't need the oil because we have too much avocado. So we eat the avocado and we throw the other avocado to the pigs and the cows and the goats because there's too much of it. So to add value to that chain, we decided, why don't we become an aggregator and produce oil? Guess what? 4 weeks ago, we started production. And it's amazing the effect. We have already employed more than 5,000 people within the entire supply chain, within 4 weeks, all right? So you can see this is part of the business school effort, although I took this thing as a personal project and I became the chairman of the company. And the other thing, obviously, is that within the knowledge, within the sustainability development knowledge, we are feeling more and more that we have to teach our people, the business schools, where they need it most, which is in the savings in production costs and competitiveness, all right? And we realize that the vast majority of that is in governance. So we have set up a very large governance center for women to be included in the board and for several other issues around governance and sustainability. To underline that, we are teaching and we are emphasizing that sustainability production, sustainable production and sustainable resilience for the future requires that sustainability is a strategy within the strategy structure of an organization. And then we show them how to do that. And that's partly the first session that Sandra Ojiambo attended. She's one of our first students in the Center for Sustainability Leadership. And you can see what blessing we had. Now, finally, here in Africa, we've realized it's very important to integrate ethics, governance, and social responsibility in every program. Not only that, our students, especially in the undergraduate section, must, and we demand it, and they must get satisfied and certified for it. They must spend more than 250 hours in community work. And they have to do that looking at the possibilities of overcoming the unethical behavior of organizations, to try to strengthen value addition by bringing in data, because data and democratization of data will overcome most of the corrupt systems that we find people entering into because they're cheated. They are cheated a lot. And therefore, I'll give you the last example regarding this. And I will go to show you how we are trying to reach out to the community even more. So now one of my professors, she's called Jacqueline McGlade, has set up community programs across a region in Kenya we call the Mau region. It is a rain watershed in Kenya, a very big one, more than 4,000 hectares of land and forest. And we were depleting the forest in order to use it as energy for the households. So today she finalized a program, today as I speak, so it's very special for me. She finalized a program to change the use of firewood with biogas from wheat char, from sugarcane char, and from the droppings of the trees, but not to cut trees. So we are going to target around 40,000 homes in doing that. But that's not all. She's also linked to the top business. So what she has done is that she's registered the Mau Forest Zone as a carbon credit region. So if companies invest in planting trees there, then they're going to get carbon credits. And when you have 4,000 hectares of a region, that's pretty. This is the way we feel we can contribute to the business directly, informing. And I want to say that we are the only ones right now in Africa who have an Institute of Healthcare and who have a Center for Women Directors from the point of view of increasing women in boards across the entire country and region, both Kenya, Uganda, all Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda. Now we're in Zambia as well, and we're helping Ghana, and we have partners in South Africa and Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George Nyanka, for this very novel ways of engaging. And I think was you going next. This is certainly some amazing examples of what we may someday call impact-based universities that we have heard here from Strathmore Business School. Thank you very much. Urs, you are the next distinguished speaker here from Inca in Costa Rica. Please.
I'm sorry. Thanks so much. It's a great pleasure to talk with you on this panel. I would like to put a proposition forward. Companies and business schools face global challenges that question the effectiveness of the way they used to collaborate. The common way to collaborate is a bilateral way where the companies are working directly with the business schools. But however, there is an emerging complementary model that I would like to call network approach. And I guess what George just presented, this is an excellent example how this might be done. The latter, this network approach, focuses on networks that include business schools and companies, but also other actors from public and social sectors. These networks aim for solving common grand challenges such as poverty, access to talent, or informal markets that include many parts of the agribusiness, George, that affect all actors involved. Let me try to explain what I mean with this network approach with an example. Inca Business School and Viva Idea, this is a Think Action tank that works in America, co-created a program that focuses on innovation and growth of small and medium-sized enterprises in Costa Rica. In Central America, where Costa Rica is located, one of the common challenges of investors and business school is access to talent. The reason is that Central America has one of the highest rates of inequality worldwide. Even promising SMEs have difficulties getting access to needed finance and education to develop their talent. This marks a complex, large-scale problem, so quick solutions do not work. And this might be aligned with, Lisa, what you said. We need new ways of thinking strategy in this highly complex context. To respond to the complexity, Inkai and Viva Idea created a network that includes also, next to the business school, Costa Rican Development Bank, private banks, the cooperative movement of Costa Rica, the Costa Rican Ministry of Economy, regional tourism agencies, and many, many others. Working in the network led to the co-creation of a couple of innovative projects. The first one was a large-scale program financed by the Development Bank that includes about 30 activities to support SMEs to create access to finance. For Inkai Business Schools, this project creates income and a lot of access to empirical data to make research. And for the companies, in this case, for the SMEs and for the banks, this supports to link investors and investees that usually couldn't be linked at all. The second innovative project that came out of this network approach was caused by the COVID-19 pandemic just recently. We created, based on the current situation, a due diligence process that supports SMEs to enter in pipeline for receiving funds from the newly created funds from the government and private sector, and all done 100% on an online way. All these actors have been collaborating now since about 3 years, and obviously it is not always fun. You need to work with people that usually you are not used to connect, that your own dean says, why are you wasting your time in working in networks like these? You need to publish. You need to collaborate with people that are more educated than you or much less educated, but you invest a lot of time and money to maintain a long-term network. Over the time, I guess the reason why up to now this network worked is the following reason. In networks, business schools and companies use common methodologies to approach problems. Okay, this sounds strange since there's usually a huge gap in the difference in how companies and business schools work. For companies, business schools are slow and theoretical, and for business schools, companies are objects to be studied, and they are not partners in creating and transferring knowledge. Nevertheless, both have a still relatively minor but increasing interest in agile methodologies that create innovation, allow for rapid testing, and fast learning. And in this context, Lisa, long-term planning does not work. So we need new and entrepreneurial approaches. Companies experiment with programs of corporate entrepreneurship or with agile planning. And business schools become more and more interested in a well-known, but from the international business research community still ignored research methodology called action research. With action research approaches, researchers play an active part in creating change in companies and societies and study the changes as well as the creating impact. Action research is quite similar to entrepreneurial methods of companies, so altogether provide a common methodological ground for the creation of joint projects within networks like described in the initial example. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Urs, for these very inspiring examples and also the questions that you are raising to why is it that sometimes progress is simply not fast enough for these types of collaborations. Our final distinguished speaker here today is Tanya. Tanya, I cannot see you. Are you still with us? So this is Tanya Titayawu from Thailand, from the Global Compact Local Network. So please. I think we may have lost Tanya on the way. Tanya, can you hear me? Well, let's hope that Tanya will re-emerge a little later. We know that it's midnight in Thailand, and it does indeed look very black on my screen here, but let's hope that Tanya will return to us. So I would like to, I don't know if you followed the stream of comments in the chat stream out here, but people are saying to you, panelists, to you, Urs, Lisa, and George, they're saying, whoa, congratulations, amazing work, thank you, very inspiring. So there's a lot of good comments in the chat here that I've been following whilst you've been speaking. And I can also say myself, I'm very inspired to listen to your examples and to listen to the conversation that you have engaged in right here. I would like to return back to sort of all these projects that you have told about. We also know very well that this is not everyday practice all around the world. We know that it happens too rarely. So I would like to start to ask the panel, why does this not happen more often? Why is it simply not the norm that business schools and business collaborate together, not just, as you said, was having businesses as an object of study, but rather sort of look upon those collaborations in new and innovative forms. I'd like to ask you, Lisa, maybe to start with a few reflections on why does this not happen more often? Why don't we see much more business school, business purpose-driven collaborations? You're on mute, Lisa.
So many different platforms. You get used to this. First of all, I would like to start with, we have a lot of cooperations with companies because working with companies is a very essential part of our curriculum. So we have a so-called integrated sustainability curriculum. So sustainability is a very essential part. It's core of our research activities also. And we try to bring this message into all the companies because one reason from my point of view that these collaborations do not happen that often is because very often it's too theoretical for the companies. They need concrete plan for action, concrete recommendations. And we, for example, started with so-called business projects, where we try to bring in we ask companies for concrete ideas, problems they have to deal with, and then our students are working on this. And students, they have a let's say, different view on the topics because they are not working for the company, so they have very fresh, new, innovative ideas, and companies appreciate this a lot. So we are working on sustainability strategies for the city of Cologne. We are working on sustainability strategies for different companies, especially in the field of supply chain management. And I really like the ideas of George because this is one of my personal projects right now with the Federal Ministry of International Relations, because they are searching for, let's say, experts, and they understood that this agricultural supply chain management, this has to be implemented into business schools, because they need experts on this. And they are now launching a really interesting project. So they are working together with universities, and they start with webinars due to Corona right now, because we could not go to Berlin and have a face-to-face seminar. They're teaching our students, we're integrating this into our lectures, and then students have to apply, and then they go to Ghana for 2 weeks and work together with farmers there, with real companies, and try to improve certain steps of the supply chain. So very interesting. Or I had a master's thesis with Anton grains, in South America. So I think it's not so difficult to set up those kind of cooperations, and it's really needed. But what you need again is purpose. You need to come up with a clear vision, what you want to achieve. And you have to offer real help and support for the companies, and this is what is sometimes, from my point of view, a little bit lacking. So we are talking about huge theoretical frameworks, and nobody can really work with it. And this is our task, that we come up with concrete actions then, and help companies to deal with. And I am a huge fan of, let's say, I call it value-based management, and entrepreneurial, courage, because you need this, yeah. You really need to stand for your beliefs and thoughts, and you have to fight for this, and you should not rethink everything because somebody says, no, I don't want to do this, yeah. So you really have to do this, and right now we have so many bad examples, also what's going on with this financial support from the government, how companies are dealing with this, and I really hope that we can together work on this. And it's not only the cooperation between the companies and the business schools. I also would like to see more cooperation between business schools all around the world, yeah, because we have so different, or our problems are so different, yeah. So we have different cultural backgrounds, and sustainability means something completely different to you, George, or Urs, for example, yeah. In different cultural fields. So we have to come up with this common understanding, and we have to find, especially in the sake of global supply chains, we have to find a common understanding, a common voice, a common language. Yeah? So how we can really solve those kind of problems. It doesn't make sense to only analyze it from our specific point of view. Yeah, we need this global understanding of what's going on in the world and how we can support this.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for these words. And of course, this is a huge part of this. You will, of course, know as the chapter chair of PRIME, also one of the ambitions of PRIME, exactly to have that knowledge exchange, that even more than what we have seen so far. George, can I invite you to talk about what does it take to make these sort of following up on Lisa and what you've said yourself and what Urs has also put on the table? What does it take to make this happen?
Wow. First, you have to start with the ideology.
Yeah.
Am I okay? You can hear me? First, you have to start with ideological differences. And now I'm speaking from, from a global perspective. Last week, I had 16 students from Germany, Poland, India, Ecuador, Mexico. It was incredible. We are part of the global network of management schools students. And we started discussing doing business in Africa. And we brought in executives from industry into that conversation, and it was a class, right? And you could have seen the incredible possibilities that were coming up in the conversation. So I'd like to say that first, we have to integrate the world a lot more, so that the good things that we find in Europe and in the advanced countries can be shared with our land here in Africa, and we can share our resources on the other hand. So point number one, we have to get rid of that, which I'm afraid COVID is leading us towards that, and I'm afraid about it, the desire to dominate, the desire for power. And when you look at it from a business perspective, most businesses do not want to share the innovative ideas that they learn with a business school. So they fear that when we go deep into research with them, then they have to take all the copyright of the material and hide it and not give it to any other business industry. So there is no common understanding of a common goal towards a better society for all. And I think it's the question of business, that business is for profit, and they don't want to share the gifts of innovation with other businesses. This is one thing we have to find a solution to. And it is a very important issue. The second important issue is that within our business schools, which are more or less centered within the university structure, demands that our lecturers grow their career through publishing, through teaching and publishing, but mainly, if you wish, through publishing. There are very, very few universities with a policy on innovation away from publishing. So we do not, for instance, if we do a good case study with a business and change it, which we have done thousands of times, that lecturer cannot write on his or her CV that they have innovated a system, they have innovated a process, they have innovated a business, they have grown a business. What we want is how many papers have you published in the A journals and in the B journals and in the C journals. And that is what will mean that they grow in a university environment that is reasonable. Now, the other thing, obviously, is that if we go to the research that is required to develop new ideas in the marketplace, they're not equivalent to the ideas that the journals want. So there is a disparity here. For us, it is basic innovation systems to grow the community. Because we have, as part of our policy in the university, that now the faculty has, yes, demonstrate publishing because they have to show their science. But secondly, they must demonstrate service to community, and that is through being in the boards of companies and being part of the decision-making of innovation projects within companies. They must demonstrate that they're doing this in the community. If they don't demonstrate it, then they don't get a higher ranking in the university, full stop. However, it's very pressurized for most of the professors to want the theoretical part of publishing only. Rarely do they ask for practical innovation, entrepreneurial ideas. And then I'll give you an example of the two. I don't know whether they will match up. So 2 years ago, we entered into an agreement with AGCO. AGCO, this is a public thing, so you don't need to worry that I'm revealing any private stories. So AGCO are the largest, third largest manufacturer of equipment, agricultural equipment. And AGCO decides to come to Africa because sales of first-hand, or rather new tractors and combine harvesters. So they ask us, can we train practical people, young people in a practical setting of agribusiness experience? So we say, yes, of course. So within 6 months, we set the curriculum, we designed how they are going to come out, and we said it is not a degree, this is a certification, but it will take you 2 years. Many people resigned from their jobs to come for this program, which was not going to show a degree like the normal certification needed by many companies. Guess what? 20 finally graduated. Before their graduation, AGCO, Massey Ferguson, Fendt, Challenger, there are quite a number of machines they sell across the world, took all the graduates to Switzerland, to US, to Nigeria, to Ghana, to Zambia, to South Africa. Nobody was allowed to use those students. And then they closed shop, they closed the program. Why? Because probably we didn't treat them very well. That could be the case, but that was negotiable. Or because probably they don't want more people competing for the same students, because I have to tell you, the students came out incredible. The second example is with Kuna Nagel. Kuna Nagel has a university for supply chain. Kwene Nagel is working with us to set up supply chain systems for healthcare, especially pharmacology, to make sure that medicines are distributed properly across Africa. Well, we had to start from zero, which means that we have to start by training PhDs. You understand what I mean? Why shouldn't we go further and quickly by working with industry, and industry realizing that business schools can work towards the development, the future sustainable development of their companies with the latest knowledge? Well, because you see, business is for profit, and they want largely ideologically shareholder value now. And we can't lie about that. Very few companies are looking long-term, 20 years, and investing in that. And somehow business schools are caught between the theory of developing a sound, sustainable business and, well, we have to get profit today. This is very crucial. And I think there is also need for the integration of academia, industry, and government. Now, these three linkages, yes, I see it working very well in Germany. Thank you, Lisa. I have heard you. But we have to, in Africa, we have to do a lot of work. Thank you very much. These are the reasons I can give.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I can thank you. These are really, really great insights, and I really appreciate that. And I can see also in the stream of questions that are coming here in my chat that some of these questions have already had not the full answer, but at least some of the answer in the examples coming up here. So I can see, Tanya, you are now with us again. I'm so sorry that time is running just too fast on this exciting panel. I wish we had just another hour, but we only have something like 12 minutes left. So before I invite you back for another comment about how we could sort of scale up and speed up perhaps even the business school relationships, I'll just invite you, Tanya, for a brief sort of comment from that you had prepared as your introductory, but you fill out for a moment. Please, Tanya.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes,
I may not able to clearly hear you, but it's okay. Now we are thinking about the trend of the business school. We know that the business world cannot run with a dead planet, and we of course adopt the learning about the social issue is very close to us. When the business school in Asia Pacific we had learned nowadays is more than collaboration, but we are part